So this is the work that's intended to be at the Baltic, but we're just currently putting it together. It's not quite working yet. This top bar is bending way too much, which essentially makes it look really ungraceful because the whole like angle, if you like, of this work is to imitate like a Calder, like an Alexander Calder kind of a work. And so basically Calder would never put up with this. When I went to the Baltic, I realised when I did the site visit and I was in the downstairs gallery for a while that the kids made up like a much greater percentage of the demographic than any show that I'd done before. That completely informed the way the show was made and what was going to be made for the show, which is where this kind of idea of the puppet came from, this ancient form of entertainment that was directed at kids but produced by adults. The puppet is the outfit I wear in the studio every day. It's a gilet, a hat, these shorts actually, and then this puppet is carrying out different tasks in various scenes which will make up the exhibitions. The first of which is the one here, which is like an eating scene or like a lunch scene. So obviously like there's food and a cup of tea that is hanging there. The second scene is this person at work rolling out clay. So there'll be a rolling pin in one hand and a scraper which we use to sculpt in the other hand. And then the third scene is this puppet choosing what footwear to wear. So he's got one pair of trainers in one hand and one pair of trainers in the other hand. So in each sculpture there isn't actually any like flesh. It's just these kind of material elements that make up a outfit and explain a task. This is my studio. I looked into the camera then. Okay, so everything that you see in here is basically in preparation for the Baltic. So to start with, there's like these rolling pins, which just look like tubes at the moment, but they'll have like a wooden glaze on them. And then this is for the studio scene that we spoke about with the puppet out the front. And these are tools that will be around the object. Here's another plate of food, which will be in the food scene, which we saw out the front. These things are big pots, which are kind of one of like the staples of what I make. So they'll be in and around the show as a sort of, because the exhibition isn't something that I would normally make. I haven't made these puppets before. So there is a sort of, I also want to show works that, if you like, the puppet made, if that makes any sense, as I am the puppet or the subject. And so these are kind of typical works of mine. Then we have the caps and the shoes. This is kind of my favorite sculpture in the show because I feel like it's a great conceptual, sort of like lightweight conceptual artwork, which is a sculpture of a bag of clay. So it's kind of like a cheesy sculpture of a bag of clay with like way too much curve, and like essentially it's a bag of clay that's a celebration of the material itself. I wanted to make a sculpture that was a half-finished sculpture, but not actually half-finish it. So finish it as a half-finished sculpture. So this is like a half-done pot with hands left on it as if they're still kind of making it. And this will again be in the studio scene. So in the second room at the Baltic, in the smaller room, there's going to be this series of works that are kind of mimics or attempts at making other people's art. This is a sculpture called Rocking Pot by Peter Balkos. This is a guy called Ken Price who made these absolutely amazing snail cups. And then there's this amazing series of tools that John Mason made. And then the final work is this little pot by a guy called Rudy Ortio, who was like, I think was probably like a huge Matisse fan. So these are kind of my favorite works by each artist. None of these artists have ever been exhibited in a public institution in the UK and barely in a commercial gallery. It's a celebration of things that have enormously influenced me, things that I would love to show alongside and maybe can't yet because I'm just not at that level. Okay, should we look in the kiln? So in here is another one of these gilets that's on the, for the puppet. So I can't pull it out immediately because the object is going to potentially crack. This is a glaze firing. So usually you do one firing, which is a bisque firing, the second firing is a glaze firing. In the glaze firing, you can send the kiln up really fast. So this has been fired to 1070 degrees. Normally, when I'm making art, I don't actually do it that way. What I do is I would take just the clay and I would glaze it and once fire. So the reason that's been fired twice in this standardized way, if you like, is because I want the glaze, which is a commercial glaze, that red glaze, to be exactly as it should be, because conceptually that aligns with the fact that the gilet which I wear in the studio, which is part of the puppet, is a mass-produced object. And so conceptually it was just important that all of these works, the shorts, the hat, the jacket and the shoes, were made with commercial glazes from a shop. The reason I'm explaining that is because when we look in this other kiln, this stuff has been once fired and with glazes that I made myself. This copper glaze with the copper carbonate is really nice, this matte glaze. I like that. Like with most of my work, it's a celebration of the material and like visually and in terms of the way, the feeling of making it when you make it. It's got like my fingerprints all over it, the way it's been squeezed, the way that it's like relative specifically like to my hand. Like even when I grab it there, I can feel that these two fingers fit perfectly under there and that this one, my thumb fits in there, because I can feel that was the way I squeezed it. There's something super personal about making ceramics in particular. I mean, I always made sculpture, but ceramics in particular is like, it really reflects the way you behave, how you behave. The reason that I began to make ceramics is because when I was doing my master's, I did an exchange to a college in New York, and the education system is different because basically art education in the UK is all self-motivated, you know, like you choose what you're going to do, how you're going to do it and why you're going to do it. But in the States, you actually have to attend classes. And so I ended up in this clay and casting class, which I sort of thought like, God, this is going to be really boring, you know, like it was actually just a giant plaster studio and clay studio, which was perfect for making ceramics in. And so I started making ceramics, and the first thing I made actually was a baseball cap. As soon as I'd made like 3 of these baseball caps, I was kind of essentially blown away by the material. And it's funny because I just reckon that so many artists like look for the material that they might like naturally work in, and maybe just never find it. And just through all of this sort of strange chance and alignment, I just found the material that I felt like I could really communicate in.